What is the best show that was cancelled after just one season? Forever. It's a crime TV show about an immortal medical examiner. Incredible good show. But I think it flopped in the US and therefore never got a second season. I liked it. Constantine. I think it was just on the wrong channel. Shows I have not seen mentioned that should be Jericho. It was cancelled after season 1. But super fans pushed for another season and got a few more episodes. Limitless. Terra Nova. Limitless had so much potential and it just kinda ended. I know they technically wrapped up the storylines, but it was a mess. I agree. The creators could have taken the show to 3 seasons in my opinion. If they did it right. The ending of it was definitely a meh, but overall I thought the 1 season was fun. Man, I loved Limitless. I liked how it continues from after the events of the movie and we can kinda see how things might go later. Holy shit, it does. I've only seen like the first 10 minutes of the movie, but I watched the whole TV show. Now that you mentioned that some things line up. Terriers. It only had 13 episodes, which coincidentally is also the number of people who watched it. But it really was acrobatic in the making. I think I still have it somewhere on a hard drive. I never finished it. I should do that. Tuca and Bertie. Thankfully Adult Swim is picking it up to continue it, but Netflix scrapping it after 1 season was a really low blow. If I ever meet Reed Hastings, I'm going to punch him in the duck for Tuca and Bertie being cancelled. Band of Brothers. Why did they have to end the war? Heard they killed off the main bad guy. Captain Sobel? He was on a break. Freaks and Geeks. Came here to say this. I saw it on Netflix for the first time and was absolutely dumbfounded that it just ended. Definitely one of the best shows I've ever watched. I couldn't believe and still can't believe they didn't continue it. I think it had a really bad time slot, like Friday night or something, so it just couldn't get traction. Also, Fox didn't like the underage alcohol and drug content. I remember watching it with my grandma on Fridays. She loved it cause that was the time frame she grew up in. Oh, my grandma grew up during the Depression. Thanks for making me feel old. Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. As much as I adore this show, I feel like 1 season was a good look for it. I don't even mean to imply that it would have become stale or anything. There's just something about the way it's so self-contained that fits the context in which it's framed really well. I agree. This is one instance where I think more seasons would have actually undermined the show's appeal. The fact that it's such a short one-off 6-episode series is basically like a joke within itself. I just wish they kept spinning it off and made a universe of tangentially connected shows. We got a season of Man to Man with Dean Lerner, which is also brilliant, so I could see them being able to draw from that well still. My So-Called Life. This made me do a Google search. I could have sworn this show was on for multiple seasons. I guess 19 episodes felt like an eternity as a preteen. I was like, this person is wrong. I remember it being on for my whole early teens. Awake. Such a cool concept of 2 timelines, wherein one his wife died, the other his son. Used both realities to solve crimes. Just felt like they could have done so much more with another season or 2. I really enjoyed that show too. Another one of those shows that somehow couldn't find an audience. I felt like I was the only one watching it. You, me and my mom. We kept it going. Friend. There are dozens of us. Flash forward. Thought it would be a lost successor at the time. That show had potential. But as I recall, it felt like it was always just a little too scattered and couldn't quite catch up to itself. That's true, though I wonder if part of it had to do with them knowing they had limited time left. Undeclared would fit perfectly as a Netflix show. What a bummer. My take would have to be Freaks and Geeks. Both Judd Apatow shows. Appreciated too late on both, unfortunately. The Adventures of Briscoe County, Jr. Love that show. Heroes. At least I choose to believe it was cancelled after just 1 season. Started rewatching season 1 this week. I forgot what a great show it was. I know I watched all 4 seasons at the time of broadcast, but I'll be stopping at the end of S1 this time round. The Sox knows better now. I thought Flash Forward was very promising. I ended up reading the book it was based on, and I felt like where they were taking the show would have been even better. Never knew it was based on a book. Have to check that out. Space, Above and Beyond. Clone High. Thankfully it's coming back now. Did you see the poll? They flipped the B *TCH. Say Wesley. Selfie. The one with Karen Gillan. The premise is simple. A bubble-headed social media addict realizes during a business trip that her life is a mess due to her addiction and seeks help from a guy opposite to her. The show started being dumb, but as the episodes went by, it became entertaining. Sadly, the showrunners burned the character's development by rushing the plot, and it got cancelled before premiering the last few episodes. Edit, a few typos and grammar. I came here for this, and I'm glad I'm not alone. Karen Gillan is brilliant, and John Cho is hot AF. Such a funny show. But it was poorly marketed and named. Good Omens. I know there was only 1 season, because Terry died before a second book could be made, but it still doesn't make the disappointment go away when you finish the final episode. There is potential for there to be a second series/season, as Neil Gaiman has said their idea for a second book would be around the beings that angels and demons are and their fight with humanity. They kicked it around for ages, but never got around to doing anything. However, I would be very nervous if they did do a second one. The first one was so great and it works well if you consider it a miniseries, a la masterpiece theater. I would be very nervous if they did do a second one. Neil Gaiman being involved would make me less nervous, but I feel you. Neil Gaiman's involvement is absolutely essential and the bare minimum for a second season. See American Gods. Not having Gaiman was the first issue. Second one was losing showrunners, including Gillian Anderson throwing off the whole show. Forever. Finally, someone gets it. I like that they played around with his deaths, but didn't do it so often that it felt expected or forced. I agree. I also just felt the entire cast was well rounded and well acted. It was the first series in a long time I looked forward to each week's new episode. I know it's been years, but I'm still salty over the cliffhanger that'll never be resolved. And the premise was a nice twist on an otherwise stale genre. Firefly. Hands down. I remember when fans were pushing to buy the rights/fund more material to be made. The fan base for Firefly is undoubtedly strong. Police Squad. Of course it came back years later in movie form as The Naked Gun, but it counts. In color. Bunheads. It was written by the same person who wrote Gilmore Girls and had the same smart, fast-paced humor. The fact this only got 1 season is criminal. Amazing writing, acting, dancing, and they actually understood how to record dances and showcase them. I'll say Dollhouse. Yes, it got a second season, but it was effectively cancelled after the first season ended. At least they got to wrap up the story with season 2. Harper's Island. Not sure if this only aired in Canada or USA too. It was like a season-long horror movie with characters getting picked off 1 per episode. I was a kid when it aired and loved the suspense each week. I think it was meant to be a miniseries from the start though. Pushing Daisies. Agree, but there were 2 series, not just 1. Well, 1. 5. I love/hate how shows from my 2 favorite showrunners are all over this thread, Brian Fuller and Joss Whedon. I rewatch anything from these guys rather than any of the slop on US TV currently. John Doe. Mission Hill. Weirdy Beans at. Weirdy. Beans at Weirdy Beans at. I literally thought of that yesterday after all these years. Haha. Wonderfalls. Brian Fuller made a light-hearted sequel to Wonderfalls, also starring Caroline Davernus, called Hannibal. In it, Jay Tyler has grown up to be a psychologist. Brown paid off and changed her name to Alana Bloom to hide her own psychiatric hallucinations of talking objects. She continues to use the advice of the talking objects for the forces of chaotic good to help her track down serial killers for the FBI. Like in Wonderfalls, the talking objects don't always give her direct or immediately beneficial advice, which leads to some wacky hijinks like getting pushed out a high window or sleeping with the very serial killer she is tracking. If you loved Wonderfalls, you will love Hannibal. Really? Is this canon or a theory you like? Wouldn't it be cool if it were canon? If Fuller included some little nod to Jules in Hannibal? Like, Alana Bloom gets drugged by a serial killer and a lion statue seems to be talking to her. But no, not at all canon or even a theory. Hannibal just happens to have the same showrunner and Avernus is in the main cast of both. I just thought it would be fun to try and write a Hannibal summary, as if it were a sequel to Wonderfalls. The two shows are extremely different, except for Fuller's use of magical realism in both shows, and Avernus. Constantine. Swamp Thing came here for this. It was very well received by viewers. DC finally had a good TV show. Wife and I loved it. Made it to like episode 6 or 7 before learning there would be no more. Should I watch it? Even if there is only one season, I think it is worth watching, but you will be left with a lot of unanswered questions. John from Cincinnati. I had to scroll way too far to find this. So strange, but so enthralling. Undergrads. Early 2000s animated sitcom about freshmen in college. Luckily a Kickstarter was funded for a follow-up movie. Hey guy. Gotta get love from all the sexy ladies. The Muppets on ABC. I could watch Muppets anything. Kermit could read the news, and I would be delighted. To be fair, a Muppets news show covering real-life events would be fantastic. Forever. Yes, I loved this show. And you only truly got introduced to the main villain in the last couple of episodes. The Secret Circle on the CW. It was also written by the same person who wrote The Vampire Diaries. So much wasted potential. Although, I was happy to see a lot of the main characters went on to get bigger roles after the show. Rubicon. Came here to say that. Loved that show. The Grinder with Fred Savage and Rob Lowe. That show cracked me up. But what if it wasn't cancelled? Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. Came to see if anyone would say this. I'm still sad about it. My friend and I quote that show all the time. The problem was it started the same year as 30 Rock, and even though they were completely different shows, both couldn't survive. The problem was he tried to write a show about a funny show, without bringing the funny. I kept wishing he brought in actual funny writers for the skits, and just focused his writing on all the other scenes. Knowing what I know about his process now, I know that would never have been an option. I actually don't disagree with you at all, but I thought overall the show was good enough that it could have lasted, and I don't think that was the main problem. Also, when people were talking about shows that year, they described both 30 Rock and S60 as behind the scenes of an SNL type show, even though they were vastly different. I liked Almost Human. Who doesn't like Robot Cops? I can't believe I had to scroll this far to find a fellow fan. It's one of my favorite shows. It had so much potential. There were so many unanswered questions. I'll never forgive Fox. Not cancelled, but it's been 7 years and we are waiting for No Game No Life Season 2. Wait, has it been 7 years already? Holy shit. Or an high school host club. Taboo with Tom Hardy. Scariest 6 words to hear coming out of Tom Hardy's mouth. I have a use for you. I don't know. There's an astounding number of thirsty mums out there who would strongly disagree with you that anything Tom Hardy says is scary. Least of all, I have a use for you. Anyone remember Now and Again from the 90s? John Goodman gets hit by a train and his consciousness is transplanted into Eric Close, a superhuman government prototype in a program run by Dennis Haysbert. They're using him to fight terrorism. Hez secretly trying to reconnect with his family. It was nominated for a bunch of Emmys. but I heard it was too expensive to continue. The only season ended in a huge cliffhanger. I'm still sad about it. Dracula. The NBC version with Jonathan Rhys Meyers same. Absolutely criminal that show was cancelled. The Black Donnellys. Wow. I haven't thought about that show in a long time. You're absolutely right. Is it streaming anywhere? Alcatraz. We were really enjoying this show. And then, it's gone. It had the potential to run a long time, with a lot of potential stories. I mean, it wasn't the greatest show ever made, but it was definitely enjoyable. Better Off Ted. That show was hilarious. It actually got 2 seasons. Wasn't it a victim of the writers' strike? Caprica. Limitless. Dave the Barbarian. It's not even on Disney+. The Good Cop. A show about a father-son duo. The son had lived a whole childhood under his father, a corrupt cop, but wasn't allowed to ask where the money comes from. Son grows up to be the most by-the-books police detective ever. Great show. First episode was a banger. It's on Netflix if you like old 90s crime movies or Brooklyn 99. Good recommendation. Don't know how I feel about Dinza. His voice just reminds me of Who's the Boss, and I hated that show growing up. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you want more videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. You are helping me a lot. Thanks again.